Welcome to the latest episode of the Phreak Show, where we talk about patch 9.6. And by we, I mean me, because none of you have any speaking roles. I'm really letting fame get to my head. That's a good thing. Regardless, this is the playoff patch for LCS and LEC, the proving grounds that will determine which team has the best Danish mid laner on their way to MSI. There's plenty to talk about in this one, so let's get into it. From buffs and nerfs to small-scale reworks, there's lots of ground to cover, and Urgot is back and scarier than ever. The big things to take away are that number one, Purge, which is his turret form W, is now a zero-cost toggle at rank 5, permanent if he wants to be. Number two, his shield got moved to Disdain, which is his dash flip on E. And three, he's got way better attack damage ratios than before, meaning we might be seeing higher attack damage builds on the champion. At the very least, Urgot is completely viable, if not overpowered, in solo queue. And I expect we see him in pro play as well. He's also being played not only in top lane, but in the jungle by pro players. So hey, more flex picks. It's exciting. Next up is Xayah, who saw some very substantial buffs to Deadly Plumage by gaining between 10 and 20% more attack speed on her W than before. She's definitely right back in the mix. She's also favored in her matchup against Kalista, who was the highest presence bot laner last patch, so I truly expect her and Rakan to make the grandest of entrances in this week's play. Next up, Kael got a taste of play last week when she was enabled for the second week of the patch on competitive. Even with a pretty frail laning phase, some players are still willing to stick it out and find their way to endgame like a true Avenger. While 9.6 took down her attack damage and attack speed growths, some large buffs to the cast times and usability of her W and E ended up increasing Kael's overall power. My bold prediction is that we see nerfs in 9.7, and she will see spurts of pro play throughout the playoffs. Next up is Jace. He has been absolutely overtaking pro play for quite a while now, especially with some of the old top laners receiving nerfs in the past. As a huge lane bully who loves to push turrets for a living, Jace isn't actually seeing nerfs to his offense. Instead, his health and health regeneration took cuts. Now, the way to take down Jace is all-ins or solid ganks in his lane. This should be enough to free him from the ban list at some points, but I do still expect to see Jace as a high-tier top laner. Next up is a cool fringe pick. Hecarim got some significant damage on Rampage if he remains in combat. We just might see the Shadowy Horseman bojack some fools in the jungle, or more likely, in top lane. He's really strong into both Aatrox and Ryze, who are fairly frequent picks right now in the meta, so he definitely has a place in the playoffs, which is more than I can say for Misfits. Another big set of changes are to 4 old-school tank champions that used to see pro play but don't see much or really any right now. Nautilus, Shen, Ornn, and Gnar all got buffs in 9.6. It seems like Riot tried to open up some more tank top options, which is a Team Liquid buff, and they seriously need it. However, I looked across pro player solo queue accounts and saw scattered Ornn games and a bit of Nautilus and Shen, but only at support, and almost zero Gnar across the board. So, if you were hoping that we were leaving the tank meta in bottom lane, that doesn't seem too likely. We might see Morgana as a counterpick to Rakan if she smashes that lane really hard, but that's probably about it. It's tanks for a while down there. A few high-priority champions saw nerfs as well. You can no longer build 2 tiers of the Goddess, which mostly affects Ezreal. LeBlanc's Sigil of Malice, Zoe's Sleepy Trouble Bubble, Sylas's Kingslayer, and Rek'Sai's Void Rush all saw small nerfs. These high-priority champions will all be sticking around after the changes, with the only possible exception being Ezreal, who was slowly phasing out as other bot lane picks gain strength anyway. There's also several small buffs that bear quick mention. Caitlyn's Ace in the Hole, Iron's Brushmaker, Trundle's Frozen Domain, Nico's attack speed growth, and a couple bug fixes to Aatrox round out all the direct champion changes in this patch. In some of these cases, we saw scattered play, and for the rest, these changes weren't that impactful in the first place. So I really don't expect to see much change in any of these champions' presence as a result, except that Aatrox will be a better pick into Vladimir than before, as one of the bug fixes was that Infernal Change will now pull Vlad through Sanguine Pool. Overall, a pretty interesting patch with lots of nudges in the right direction. for a few pro-facing champions. Now, Lissandra still remains the queen of top end, with Galio, Braum, and Ryze all close behind. However, I'm expecting Urgot, Xayah, and Rakan near the top in this patch, and we might see Nautilus, Shen, Kael, and Hecarim as fresh faces. All the champs who got nerfed should still see action, but we might see a few more bans freed up as a result. Quick reminder that 2 weeks ago was my birthday, so a shout out to all of you who wished me happy birthday in the previous Phreak Show. And for those who didn't, go back to that video and correct your mistake.